amigos, my name is Bea and today I'm doing my August wrap up and September TBR. So in the month of August I read 5 full physical books and I read 3 Kindle books. I also read half of another book, but I'll get into that in a minute. So as I said in my August TBR, I wanted to read the Throne of Glass series and I almost completed that task. I also said I wanted to read Illuminae and Jamina, but I didn't get around to that unfortunately. I'm not upset that I didn't read Illuminae because I always have a chance to read it in the future, so I'm moving on. So yes, I managed to read 5 books of the Throne of Glass series, including The Assassin's Blade, which is the prequel novella thing that goes alongside them. So I am going to tell you my thoughts and feelings on all of the books that I read this month, and then I'm going to get into my September TBR. So the first book that I read in the month of August was The Assassin's Blade. This is a wrap up of all of the novellas that are prequels that go alongside the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J Maas. There are 5 novellas within this book that are prequels to the Throne of Glass series. These stories follow Selena Sardothian on her adventures and kind of her journey on the lead up to the Throne of Glass series. So I loved this prequel so much. I love that it's a bunch of short stories all combined into one book, so it's really easy to read. I think I read this in one day. It's a really quick read for anyone who wants to read something fantasy related. So I gave Assassin's Blade 4 out of 5 stars. I didn't give that last star because it's not a full book, it is 5 short stories and it's not as long a book as I would have liked it to be. I would have loved to have read even more of Selena's start in life, even though we do find out more later on in the series. I would have loved an in-depth version of her earlier years. So the second book I read in the month of August was Throne of Glass. This is the first full book in the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J Maas. This is kind of the start of Selena's journey, if you want to put it that way. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars just because I could see a love triangle starting to happen within this book, and I found that a love triangle happening so soon into a series, especially one so long, kind of didn't work for me. I wasn't that into the love triangle thing. The next book I read in the month of August was Crown of Midnight by Sarah J Maas. This is the second book in the Throne of Glass series. I gave this book a full 5 out of 5 stars. To be honest, this is probably my favourite book of this series. And alongside that, I also really loved the relationship that started to evolve within this book. Even though it only lasts for this one book, it's still probably my favourite relationship of the series. And I especially loved Selena's character progression alongside that relationship. Kind of helped her evolve over the progress of this book. So the next book I read within the month of August was Heir of Fire, the third book in the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J Maas. So within this book we also follow a couple other points of view. So this book is not just from Selena's point of view. We also hear from Cowell, Dorian, which is the king's son, Rowan, and we also meet a new character called Manon, and we follow her through this book as well as all of the other characters. So Manon actually became one of my favourite characters of this series. She was my Woman Crush Wednesday last week on Instagram, so if you don't follow me on Instagram, go and follow me on Instagram. So there is loads of information within this book, but I did give it a full 5 out of 5 stars. Again, this is probably one of my favourite books of the series. It did take me a couple hundred pages to get into the multiple POVs, but after that I was well into it and I read it non-stop. I could not put this book down. The next book I read in the month of August was obviously Queen of Shadows. This is the 4th book in the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J Maas. We also follow a whole host of other people. We still follow Cowell and Dorian and Rowan, but we also follow Dorian's girlfriend. She's kind of a healer within his castle. But yeah, there are still even more POVs to be had within this book, which made it even more difficult to read than Heir of Fire, and it did take me a couple hundred pages more than it took me in Heir of Fire to actually get into the writing style of this book. The one main thing that I hate about this book is Cowell's character progression. So he is pissed off at Selena for not telling him who she was and not being truthful, but when she comes back to Queen of Shadows, he doesn't let her explain, and he's a right dick to her, and I hate his character within this book. His POVs within this book were so hard to read because I just couldn't get over what he was saying about Selena. Yes, she should have maybe trusted him a bit more and told him what and who she is, but he's got to get over that. Like, she couldn't trust him in the beginning. He has to get over that, and to be fair, he does. But in my opinion, it's really late in the story that he gets over it. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars because of a couple reasons. One, the amount of POVs we follow within this book is just starting to get a bit astronomical and out of control. 2, Selena and Cal's relationship just goes downwards, and within Crown of Midnight, that was my favourite character relationship, and it just goes out of the door within this book, and it really bugs me. The only good thing about this book is Rowan, to be honest. He is amazing within this book. I love him. And the only other good thing about this book was the ending, which had me really surprised that I loved the ending of this book. I was like, why do I love the ending of this book? I am on page 280 of Empire of Storms, and there's a couple reasons why I didn't actually finish this within the month of August. This book is where Sarah J Maas ruined the series for me. We get astronomically more POVs to follow within this book. I think we have 3 more POVs than the last one, which on its own in the last book was hard enough, but with 3 extra, it's like not necessary. I think having so many POVs kind of takes away a bit of the tension. Like, we're not on the edge of our seats trying to find out what's happening because we're already being told what's happening all over this world because we're following POVs that are dotted all over the country that they're currently in. Honestly, I like not knowing what's about to happen. I like being in the dark alongside my main character. Like, at the point where I'm at, someone is trying to find Selena and tell her this bit of information. I would love to be Selena, not knowing what that bit of information is. That bit of information could probably save her life and she doesn't know it yet. But I already know it, and I'm like, well, that's gonna happen. That's what really bugs me about this series. I'm really not sure whether to DNF this book, which, if you don't know what that means, it means do not finish, because I really want to read Tower of Dawn. To be fair, at this moment in time, I'm still really pissed off at Cal, so that probably won't happen just yet until I'm over him. But at the moment, I'm not going to get to it anyway because I'm really struggling to finish this book. So alongside the 5.5 physical books that I read within the month of August, I also read 3 Kindle books. Most of the time, the reason that I pick up my Kindle is because, 1, I'm not somewhere where I have a physical book with me, or 2, I need a change of pace. And this happened to me 3 times this month. I was in a boring situation and I didn't have a book. So the first Kindle book I read this month was April Showers by Carly Perrin. It is part of a duology. This book is a reread for me. It's a one-day read for me. I only picked up this book because it is something light and fluffy. So that leads me on to the second Kindle book I read this month, which was April Fools, again by Carly Perrin. This is the second book in the April Showers duology. I gave both of these books 3 out of 5 stars. Just because they're really short, there isn't much storyline, there's not much substance to either of these books. So they're really easy to read, they're nice to have in between reading really angsty and long books, but they're not 5-star books for me, unfortunately. The third Kindle book I read in the month of August is Number 13 by Bella Jewell. This book is a standalone, it is a reread for me. I've read this like 3 times. This was like my 4th time reading this book. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars just because it deals with a lot of heavy subjects and it deals with them amazingly. It deals with suicide, it deals with PTSD, it deals with the sex trade and the slave trade and all of that kind of stuff. It deals with them greatly. Within this book I also see a shit ton of character progression with number 13 and with her master William. They both have great progression with their relationship and their characters, and they kind of figure stuff out together, which I really, really love. So 4 out of 5 stars for number 13. So that is all of the books that I read in the month of August. 8 books, which is what I wanted to read. It's not the exact books that I wanted to read, but I still read 8.5. Gotta put in the half. So that leads me on to my September TBR. So with me saying in my August TBR that I was going to read these 8 books and I'm not going to read anything other than those 8 books really put me in a bad headspace, and it kind of made me not want to read the books that I said I was going to read, hence me not finishing the list of books that I wanted to read. So this month I'm not going to do that. This month I'm going to say I'm reading 5 books and I'm going to read those 5 books. But alongside that, I can pick up any book that I want on my shelves, on my Kindle, and I'll be happily reading them alongside the books that I'm going to pick. So I'm not putting myself in a tiny little box with 8 books to read. I'm putting myself in a huge box with 1,000,000 books to read, basically. So the 5 books I will be reading this month are the Luck series. If you have watched my previous book haul where I got these books, you'll know that I am very, very, very excited to read them. I have read them previously on my Kindle, so this will be a reread of the first 4 books for me, but I have not read Opposition yet, which is the last book. So I'm very excited to find out what happens in the last book. So that is my August wrap up and September TBR. I hope you liked this video. If you did, then hit that like button down below and subscribe while you're down there so you don't miss any more of my future videos. I will be with you next week with an unboxing. Exciting. So yeah, bye!